Tasha Journeys Live. I'm your host, Tasha Danielle, and welcome to episode 7 of Tasha Journeys Live. Coming in a little bit early for those who are planning to watch the Super Bowl today. I'm not watching the Super Bowl because the Lions did not go to the Super Bowl. So let me know if you're watching the Super Bowl and what you are most excited to see. I'm going to watch the halftime show. So I'm here to see Usher, and that's literally about it. But this episode is not about the Super Bowl or Usher. It's about budgeting. So that is what we're going to talk about today. So if you are a beginner in budgeting, or you feel like you always say you're going to start a budget, you may create one and then that's it. You never look at that budget again. It disappears. And then this live is for you. Let me know any questions you have as I'm going through the different budgeting methods that I will be sharing with you, and what your pain points are and all of that. I'll be giving some insights of what I hear from people when I'm coaching from them, and couples as well, when they're trying to get back on track with their finances. So also let me know if you can hear me okay. If there's any delay, please let me know. I watched it live. I did with Tanae, and I was bored the whole time. I was like, what? Yes, I'm really watching for Usher. So yeah, happy Sunday, Jackie. Thank you for joining. Well, that was me. Good afternoon, Tanya. Yeah, I'm only watching for Usher too. All right, so there are a few things I want to go over. The four different methods for budgeting. And first and foremost, before getting started with anything with finances, if you watch my videos before, you know I'm gonna say, what is your why? If you don't have your why when it comes to your money, you're not going to stick to it. It's not going to be easy, because when you are getting on the track with your finances, that means you're going to have to delay gratification. That means you're going to have to say no to things in the moment for your future, right? So I'm not going to sit up here and say like, oh, having your finances together and everything is fun and easy. It can be once you start hitting those goals, but in the beginning, it's going to be a little bit tough. So what is your why? Is that contributing to your 401k? Because you heard me talk about it so far on the lives I've been doing. Are you trying to purchase a home or a condo in the next year? You may be thinking, I really know, after you talking about retirement and Social Security, that I may need to help my parents financially. So I need to get my finances on track. Taking that dream vacation. Maybe you want to be like me and travel the world for a year. So you like, I need to get my money together to do that. So what is your why is the first step, so you can stick to staying on track with your budget. The next thing is setting a baseline. So whatever budget method you choose, what is your baseline for your budget? And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Do you know what you have coming in and going out every month? So this means like, for real, not a guesstimate, because whenever I work with someone and we sit down and start looking at the real numbers, and I don't just go by what they tell me, I want to see bank statements because I want to see the truth. And it's always some aha moments or, ooh, I didn't realize that. Do you know your numbers? So if you are a salary person, you know how much money you have coming in. But if you work hourly, you may get overtime. You know, do you have a handle on what you have coming in a month? Especially if you are in a relationship and you may be pulling your finances together. Do you know the total income coming in? So that's the first step in the baseline, writing how much money you have coming in for your budget. The next thing is what's going out. That's usually what people want to give up. So yeah, you know your rent every month. Your utilities tend to stay the same within reason. This is your water, your light bill, your internet, all of that tends to pretty much stay the same. But where it gets tricky is the extracurriculars. If you have kids, they may have football, dance, soccer, right? So you may have different dues coming in. So what I hear parents say is, it's hard for me to do a budget because it changes every time. It changes month to month. We need a baseline for what's going on with your finances, right? So in a typical month, if you know that you have kids that are participating in after school curriculars, you need to write that down, what that is. This means how much you're spending on dining out. You don't know that until you pull out those statements. I mean, credit card and those debit card statements to know what your baseline is, right? So this is all about what's coming in and what's going out, right? So that's first and foremost. And it's not going to be an hour-long task. It's going to take you probably a few days to do. So what I suggest is taking about a half hour as you're making your budget. Not your budget, but your baseline for your budget, right? So you may start off on day one, write down your income, right? Day two, you could just write down your steady expenses that you have, which is your bill. The next day could be, all right, now I'm going to look through all the credit cards and our credit card statements and debit card statements to figure out what I'm actually spending my money on. And do me one favor. If you are just joining, make sure you hit that like button and the share button. Go ahead and share this live to your Facebook feed and show me some love in the comment section currently in replay game too. Let me know if you have any questions. But back to what I was talking about with the baseline. You want to make sure that you understand what is going out. And day two, like I said, could be writing down your steady expenses. Day three could be the dining. Day four could be sitting down and saying, okay, how much are we actually spending on our kids' activities and things like that. And then what really gets hard is the miscellaneous stuff. So you may have the line item for groceries and what you think you spend, but then you're like, oh, well, I shop at a store. You may shop at a Walmart, or if you are in Michigan, you may shop at Meijer. And that means it's a big box store. It has clothes, it has electronics and all of that. So you may be like, oh, well, I can't figure out what I'm spending on groceries because there's other things on there, right? So this is what I mean about it takes time to build a budget. It's not going to be 1 hour because you should really see what you're spending your money on, not just guessing about, oh, I spent about $500 a month on groceries. And then when you pull out everything, your receipts and everything is $800, double what you thought, right? So if you're like, I don't want to go back, that's too much to go back. Start now. Start looking at what you've done in February so far with your spending, and then have that goal in mind to have a better baseline for March. If you're like, I don't want to go back and look through all that stuff in January, apply this for the future, okay? And after you create that baseline, it's all about figuring out the method that works for you. So common question that I get is, what is the best app to use for budgeting? Should I start with the app? I do not recommend that you start with the app when you're first starting off, because you need to get comfortable with your numbers and all the places that they're pulling from. So like YNAB, I know that that's highly recommended from a lot of financial people who use apps. I don't expect not anyone, but a lot of people to use do their budget like me. I use Excel. I love spreadsheets. I know that's not everyone's ministry, but once you write everything down, or get that baseline set up, then okay, you can look into apps to use with your finances. But you'll see that some of these methods is not even really going to require a whole lot of going back and forth. All right, so let me get to the first method, which is zero-based budgeting. Now, this is the budget method you probably all know, and this is why you probably hate budgeting. Everyone hates that B word, and people get creative with it now. They say spending plan, no budget, and it's like, okay, no budget, and it's still a budget. So it's zero-based is people feel really constricted when they use this one, and this is because you are telling your dollar, you have every dollar you have coming in has a purpose. So you're telling your money what to do. So remember, we are in step 3 right now in budgeting, right? Our first step was our why, writing that why down. Why are we going to create a budget and stick to it? What goal are we trying to achieve? Just one major goal. what's that one goal you're trying to achieve from a financial perspective. Second, setting that baseline, and then third, figuring out what method you and or your partner want to work to complete together. So with zero-based budgeting, it's literally adding to the baseline. So once you have everything written down from your income to your expenses, now you are opening this app on your phone, or I should say Excel file on your phone. You're having that piece of paper and you're actually coming back to record what happened. So this is not something, when you do a budget, this is not something that you do at the first of the month and then you look at the end of the month and see how you did. That's not how it works. You should be looking at your budget. If you have an app that you're like, okay, I'm using this just for a refresher, Tasha, then you should be in that app daily. One thing about the apps that are good is that they pull in your balances and you can see how much you're spending into categories as you're doing it. But one thing that can happen is it doesn't refresh properly, right? So with the zero-based budgeting, you have it from your baseline, and what you're doing is you're recording your actuals as it occurs. So this means at the minimum weekly, you should be putting in your actuals for your budget. So let's use one line item, for example. I always point out to groceries because this is an essential item in the budget. And if it's not just you have kids or you have a partner, it can be a little bit tricky. So let's say the $500 is the budget for groceries. You don't just go to the grocery store once a month or shop online once a month for groceries. You tend to do that once or twice a week, right? So that means that before you go to the grocery store, you will be making a list to get an idea of how much you need to plan to spend at the grocery store. So when you're doing a budget, a zero-based budget, you are taking a lot of time to be intentional with every dollar that you have coming in. So that's where it can be like, oh my goodness, this takes a lot of time. And I want to equate this to me with weight loss, right? I always like to compare it because I've always been financially disciplined and I love looking at my numbers. I check my accounts all the time. Like that's something that I like to do. It doesn't give me any anxiety. Like I don't worry like, oh my God, what is this bank account balance on say? And I know that's the reality for a lot of people. Mine is, oh my God, what's this scale gonna say? Right? I had a good weekend, meeting, I had fun, I was eating, whatever. What's the scale gonna say? I don't even want to look. I'm not gonna weigh myself into Tuesday after I go to the gym on Sunday and Monday just to try to make myself feel better, right? I get that where some people may do that when it comes to their money, but if you do that, then you won't really stay on track. So one thing about the zero-based budgeting is it is time consuming because you are being intentional, like I said already. So going back to the grocery example, if you know that it's $500 for the month, let's just say $125 a week, then you know that's how much you plan to swipe when you go to the store. So that means that as you're shopping, you should be adding up what you're putting into the cart, unless you are like, you know what, I have a roundabout idea, and if I go over, I'm going to put it back once I get to the register, right? So this means when you make the reason why I'm saying make a list is because you should be going through your refrigerator and your cabinets to see what you actually need to make whatever food you're thinking on you are planning to make for that day. You don't want to go to the grocery store and buy all these things that you like, oh, okay, I want to make spaghetti, and you buy all this stuff and you come home, you're like, oh, I already had all that. It don't matter. I'm gonna use it later. Right. And then that's how you start having a stockpile of stuff that you don't need. Really, you need the food, but you're not using it, right? So it becomes a little bit of a waste. When you are doing zero-based budgeting, you're being intentional before going to the grocery store about what you need, right? So that doesn't mean like you're like, okay, oh, I'm getting off work. Let me stop at the grocery store real quick and just grab something, right? And I know that's the reality for a lot of us. But when you start doing this zero-based budgeting, you start being more intentional, like, okay, I'm going to go to the grocery stores Monday evenings because it's slower and I know that's going to set me up for the week, whatever day of the week is, right? So instead of you just haphazardly going to the store and getting stuff, you're being more intentional. And then if you really get for real intention, if you know what you are, the meals and meal prep and stuff, then you know how much produce to buy, so you're not wasting produce. But I'm not gonna go that far deep or whatever into it. But this is the issue when people think zero-based budgeting. This is literally, you have your income at the top written out, and you have all your expenses, and then as you're going through the week, you're adding up what you're spending to that Excel spreadsheet or the app you choose to use. Right? You may see it coming in. So you know by the end of week 1 whether you are over your budget for groceries. If you are over one line item, that means, okay, you're looking at what can I reduce in the next line item, right? So it is time consuming when you're doing a zero-based budget, because it is constantly looking at when you spend and making sure you're on track. So again, with weight loss, I use Weight Watchers in the past, and the first couple weeks I'd be like, I'll forget it. I'm just gonna be comfortable with the weight I'm at, because this is too much. Because if you've ever done Weight Watchers, or when you start working with a trainer, you start tracking. You have to track everything you put in your mouth. And then you feel like, am I really living my life? And I don't really want to track all of this. This is too much. It's not that deep. But once you start tracking and exercising different food intake, you're going to see results. And I remember on Weight Watchers, it's points based. So let's say you get 23 points a day. And your girl likes to go to brunch and happy hour. One cocktail, my favorite cocktail, would be like 20 points. So if I have 23 points for the entire day and I know I'm going to happy hour, I'm like, well, I might as well not even go to happy hour no more, because I can't even have a drink, because that's all my points for the day. And then you get extra points to use during the week. Let's say you get 50 points. So you can allocate, like, okay, if I know I'm going to happy hour on Thursday and brunch here. So you start being more intentional with how you're going to use your points. It's the same thing with money, right? You're not going to be so haphazard anymore. You're going to be a little bit more disciplined, because that's the only way you're going to be able to see the results. And so also with weight, I would be like, all right, if I know I have so many things going on after work, I'm not going to be able to go home. I need to bring my snacks, so I won't stop at the fast food to grab something, and now I'm going over my points, and now I'm off track. It's the same thing when it comes to budgeting. So let me know if that's making sense for you in the comments as far as the zero-based budgeting. This is really time consuming, this method. And when people are first starting out, like once setting the baseline, I pretty much try to figure out how they are personality type wise to figure out which budget method would work best for them. The zero-based budget is the one I recommend, like the least as a standalone. I usually combine it with something else. And so the next method is going to be the cash envelope system. So I've used all of these methods that I'm going over today. And the cash envelope system is how I got out of debt. So I paid off over $80,000 in about 3 years. 3 years. I paid off $80,000 by using a combination of zero-based budgeting and cash envelopes. And so one thing I will say too that I forgot to mention is, when you are doing any of these budgeting methods, you should have at least 2 checking accounts, because you should have one account for all your bills, your set bills. I'm not saying to have everything to auto pay, but so you truly know what you're working with as it relates to spending your money. So that's one thing I forgot to mention early on. But with cash envelopes, it makes everything a little bit easier, in my opinion, because once you have your budget, right, you have everything written down, your cash envelopes, you are going to allocate your disposable income. This means you're dining out. This means your movies, all this, anything you like to do for fun. This is going to be allocated into cash envelopes. This means that this doesn't mean you're going to walk around with, if you have $2,000 to spend between categories, you're walking around with $2,000 every day. That's not what we're doing. what you do is you have one checking account that your bills are coming out of, and then you have the other account, your groceries, dining out, like these type of things, like you're taking out in cash. So your any fees you have for your kids after school programs, that's going to come to your bill, like your regular bills. This is everything but what you actually pay to another company every month. It's coming out of your second checking account, and I always say allocate for the week. So this makes it easier than you going back and adding up and seeing how everything is flowing out. I mean, from a daily perspective, you are doing it already because you're allocating the money into the different envelopes. So yeah, no extra swiping. And then I've said on other lives, like I use my credit card for everything, but I pay my credit card statement off monthly. If you are not disciplined, meaning that you're carrying a credit card balance every month, you are going to have to not use credit cards. So when I was paying off my debt, I wasn't using credit cards because like I'm not caring about points or anything like that. I'm trying to make sure I'm hitting my goal, right? And the reason why I use credit cards now is just because of I was traveling for a while, one. And if you go get my information, you can get my credit card information. I don't want you messing up my cash, right? So on the backside of that, when using my debit card, that's why I said the two different checking accounts because and not have them linked either with overdraft if it's going to drain your other account. Just in case, something happens, someone gets your information, it's not draining all of your money, right? No matter what you want to do, you should have at least two separate checking accounts, one for your bills and one for everything else. That means the one for your bills, you don't have a debit card associated to it because it's coming for your bills. That way, when you're swiping, you don't have to worry about, oh my God, all my stuff is drained. It is not set up. So with the cash envelopes, that means payday. Let's say you get paid on the 15th of every month, the 15th and 30th. That means on the 16th, that means you have your cash envelopes ready to go for that week and the second week, right? And so you have your gas money is going into an envelope, right? Is that deep? This means your grocery money is going into an envelope. This means your brunch money is going into an envelope, right? This means when you go do your toiletry run, if you love Target like me, that means it's going into an envelope. There's going to be no room for, oh, I saw this and this was cute. Oh, I know my niece would love this. She loves Mickey Mouse. Let me get it. That starts to get cut out because you are using cash. And it is literally a mental shift when you look at your envelope and you got your last $2. So you like, I want to hold on to these last $2. It's not worth it. So again, it's about combining both the methods, right? And so if you've never heard this before, if you're thinking like, people really do this? Yes, they really do. When I first came back to Michigan, came to church, people was like, when are you doing your financial seminars and stuff? Because I did this. They was like ready to tell me all the stuff they accomplished because they like them envelopes. I didn't want to do them at first, but they really work. And what type of envelopes? You can just buy a regular box of envelopes from the Dollar Tree. Spend $1.25. I'm mad it's not $1 anymore. And buy them and write out how you're going to use your money. And again, this is going to feel really restrictive because you are adjusting to a new habit. But again, you're going to think about your why. This is why you're doing it, right? So when I was using my cash envelope and paying off my debt, some friendships of mine really did end because I was trying to better my financial situation. And those friends just didn't think it was that deep. And I was saying, I can't go to a lot of things. I was like, oh, I can't make it, but I can do this, right? I never was that person that would be like, oh, I'm on a budget, so I can't do this or whatever. And even now, I'm really on a strict budget. So I'm like, I can't spend anything on that's not on my to-do list, right? So I'm saying no to a lot of travel. I'm saying no to a lot of gatherings at the moment because it's like, hey, what I'm trying to accomplish in the long term is more important than that. So this doesn't mean that I'm like not having friendships anymore. It's saying, hey, I can't go to this birthday dinner, but I'll stop by or whatever, and I may bring them something and get carry out or something like that. That's only cheaper than going to them birthday dinners. When that check comes, people saying, let's split the bill. Let me know your thoughts on birthday dinners. Now, this is kind of off topic, but I'm just curious because every year I feel like around this time, I feel like it's always that topic of conversation on if you go to a birthday dinner, should you expect to split the bill evenly? And and if you are in a party of 6 or more, they're not going to be able to split the check. So it's like you should just pay for what you have. And then people have amnesia on what they ordered. So for me, I'm just kind of over the huge like rolling deep birthday dinners just because it's a headache when the bill comes. So for me, when I go to those, I bring cash and I'm like, I already know what I'm gonna get. And I know how to add extra on extra for tip, gratuity, taxes on gratuity. I mean, gratuity and tips is the same thing. But for gratuity, sometimes it's tax on the gratuity and all of that. I just round up. Like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, my drink was $1.95, so here's $2 and where my 5 cents at. It's people that really be doing that. And I be side eyeing some of my friends, like, what do y'all be doing? But anyway, my question is, do you think that the bill should be split evenly? Like if it's $300, everybody just split that, or do you want to pay for what you spent your money on? High tea time beauty. Okay, listen, muffins sound really good right about now. Yeah, I agree. Pay for what you spent. So I would just say within the last 6 months, I've been to a lot of birthday celebrations, and I was like, no, we not splitting the bill evenly. Because I didn't order any drinks, and everybody at the table ordered drinks. And this restaurant we were at, it was like $20 a pop for a drink. So I'm not about to pay an extra $40 on something I didn't have, right? So for me, when I'm talking about bringing cash and knowing all of this, like when I was paying debt, and even now, I'm back on that real conservative money budget. I'm going to look at the menu and I'm going to get that thing, and that's all I'm going to pay for. I'm going to bring extra money for a tip or whatever. Let's say I know that my stuff come up to $40. I'm just going to bring 50. Right. I'm talking about if I know my stuff come up to 40 with tax and gratuity, I'm just going to bring 50 because I don't feel like all of that. But that's what I mean. It's cash. It is what it is. This is what I got. So you don't have to worry about whether it can be split on cards. I got my cash and I'm out, right? That type of thing. So when you have cash envelopes, you have no choice but to stick to it because you're not bringing your debit card. You don't have your credit card for emergencies. It's not on you. And it's not on your Apple Pay either. So that's something to keep in mind too. So hi everyone that's coming in. Make sure you're hitting that like button as you're coming in. I see so forth and on. It's so forth and so on. Tea Time Beauty, welcome. Make sure you guys hitting that like button. Show me some love. So cash envelopes forces you to stick to that, right? So that's our second method. We talked about the zero-based budgeting. We talked about cash envelopes. And then we're going to talk about the next one, which is pay yourself first. And this is the method that I used when I became debt free. And this is the method that I use with couples. Because when it comes to couples, it's usually, this is how it goes. It's usually one person feels like they are like the best money, they the money wizard, and this other person is dragging them down. So when they finally get the other person to come and sit with me, it's kind of like they want me to be the teacher or a parent and tag team with them, like, oh, you suck and you need to do better with your money. And it's like, nah, that's not how it's gonna work. This is a joint effort, because that attitude you have about them not being as great with money is not going to really help the situation. It could make them kind of curl up and not want to do anything, right? So I always get, how do I get my husband or how do I get my wife to be more on board? We got to get this budget together, and I can't get this, we can't get our money together because he or she won't do it or whatever. I'm always like, you can start with yourself first. And just figure out how far you can go without having that partner be a part of the conversation, because they just don't want to do it, right? And so I'm like, I'm not a therapist, even though you really do end up becoming a therapist when you work with people and their money. I'm like, I can't make someone do anything they don't want to do. And it's usually a sign of a bigger issue. So I keep talking about like working with people and all of that stuff. If you have seen my videos and you're like, how do I work with you one-on-one? You can go over to booktasha.com. You can book a 15-minute call with me just to see if I would be a right fit. You only got your quick money question. You don't need an hour. You can book some time with me for 15 minutes. Or if you know I'm ready to really get serious about investing and budgeting, everything you're talking about is cool, but I actually want someone to sit with me and hold my hand, this is how you do it. Sliding in my DMs. I don't really respond to my DMs. I don't be on social media like that. So the best way to ask me your money questions is to book a time with me. And then if you are like, okay, booking with you is not in my budget, but I have money questions. If you join me the first Sunday, I just declared that last Sunday, the first Sunday of the month, I will be doing a live Q&A. So if you text me, you can text me your question, any money question you have, and that's where you can send me your money questions. Now I will say this: I will not answer the money question on text. I will just tell you what episode that the question you sent me will be answered on, right? Because if you want to have a dialogue or one-on-one with me, that's a consultation, right? So if you want to send me your money questions, if you're watching this and you're like, I don't really want my face and name to be shown when I'm asking the question, you can text me your money questions. I won't say your name. I will just answer it and respond back to the text and let you know, hey, it's going to be on episode 10. Here's the link to me answering your question. All right. All right. So the next method is pay yourself first. And what I was saying about couples and what method works when it's more than one person trying to budget. This is what I start off with. After the baseline has been established, is the pay yourself method. Happy Sunday. Welcome. Okay, yeah. Listen, we all established that most of us is gonna be here for the Usher show. So the third method for budgeting is pay yourself method. Now, remember I said you really do need to have that baseline, but pay yourself method is before you pay your bills or your debt, you've established this is how much money I put in towards my investments and savings. Right? So hear me out. I did this after I became debt free. It wasn't like if I knew I made $50,000 a year, I'm not gonna say I'm gonna invest $40,000 because I know that I'm not living on $10,000 a year, right? So this is if you're like, okay, I've decided Tasha keep talking about 401ks. I'm going to contribute $15,000 to my 401k. So that means that you establish that baseline and you set up your automatic payments, automatic deposits for your direct deposit to hit that goal for $15,000 for the year. So you're paying yourself first. Even 401k, you're going to have to set it beforehand. Well, let's say you are like, I'm going to open a Roth IRA, or I'm going to open my first investment brokerage account. I'm going to keep talking about Fidelity, even though this ain't sponsored by Fidelity yet. You keep talking about Fidelity. I want to open my account and I want to contribute $10,000, right? So that's the goal. You set all your money to first the goal, not like you're paying $10,000 in 1 month, but you divide $10,000 by 26 pay periods. So 10,000 divided by 26, and then you take that money, and that's how you're allocating first, right? So you're not going through and keep every category from groceries to entertainment to vacations and all that. You're not going through and doing that monthly or weekly like the other ones. You're like, hey, my main goal is hitting my savings, investing goals, and then my bills are paid. Whatever is left is left, right? So this is why I use this method after I became debt free, because I became super aggressive with it and came to my investing. I mean, I'm not even joking. I don't know what the limit was when I was paying off my debt as far as how much you can contribute to your 401k, but let's just say it was $20,000. I was putting $20,000 in my 401k a year. That was first and foremost. Then I was maxing out my Roth IRA. So let's say that's $6,000. So that's $26,000. So I have my paychecks automatically set up to hit this goal. And I was even so diligent about it with when it came to investing, that if I knew that I wanted to have 6,000 in my Roth, I didn't want to take all year to do that. I wanted to do that by June of every year. So that meant that I had to set my automatic transfers from my checking to my Fidelity account or my Vanguard account. That was $500 a paycheck because I wanted to hit that by my birthday every year. So same thing with my 401k. If I wanted to have $20,000 hit in my 401k by the end of the year, then that meant $800 automatically coming every paycheck. I don't have time to think about it or doing it. It's already set up because this is the pay yourself method. So you can include your tithes in this as well. If you're like, I want to tithe first before anything else, I'm not going through my budget and listing it, everything out. If these are hit, if these things are set, then everything else will follow. Then you can do that method. And I want to reiterate that, of course, when I set this goal up, I had my baseline established, right? So I can't not pay my rent. I cannot not pay my water bill or my internet and stuff like this. This is why I said in the beginning, if you're just joining now, make sure you go back to the beginning when I talk about establishing that baseline for any method that you pick. We're on number 3 right now. So that baseline let me know realistically how much I could set up for my investing or my savings goals or whatever the case may be, right? So let me know if that's not making sense or if that sounds confusing at all. But that's why it's so important to have that baseline established. And so pay yourself method, it's easier when working with couples when first starting off because usually there's a numbers person and they love Excel. They love going through and seeing the numbers every week. And you have another person that's like, I don't want to look at it because it makes me like I have anxiety. I don't want to do it. So once it's all about establishing, that baseline of where the focus is, right? So you may be like, we can't pay ourselves first yet because we got to get out of debt, right? So then that could be working on getting out of debt or whatever. So pay yourself first is putting that top goal first, and then it's automatically shrinking your other categories down. And you don't have to check in every week because it's only so much left over that you have to work with. And when you eliminate credit cards out of the situation, eliminate payday advances, eliminate any other source where you are spending money that's not yours yet and you're playing catch up, you have no choice but to hit these goals, right? So again, I like doing this with couples. If you're watching this and you're like, I'm trying to get my spouse on board with budgeting, the pay yourself method may be the best way to start out with. And if you're in debt, it could be pay debt first method or whatever. But even with getting out of debt, I'm always advocating for you to at least invest in your 401k up to your employer match, right? So I'm going to drop that link to that live because I mentioned 401k a lot on the live that I do, or I mentioned some other retirement account, Roth, or investing brokerage accounts because it's so important not to just think about saving, but it's important to invest as well. All right, so the pay yourself method is a little bit more relaxed after that baseline is established. The baseline is still hard to do. Don't want to leave that out. Don't want to act like it's not. Now, the next method is the 50-30-20 rule. So I'm using an example of how do I know if I'm budgeting right type of thing. Like I got the question last week of, okay, you keep talking about 401k, but how do I know if I'm doing it right? I really like that question because it was like, how do I know if I'm doing it right? And I get that with budgeting, right? Because it could be a slow walk before you hit that financial goal. So it's like, okay, I'm seeing a little bit here and there, but how do I know if I'm doing it right? The 50-30-20 rule is cool as a baseline. It may not be realistic depending on where you live, but let me take this off because this is not pay yourself. This is the 50-30-20 rule. You have 50% of your income going to essentials like your rent, your utilities, your internet, your phone. Then you have 30% going to your wants. So this is like your shopping, dining out, vacation. and then 20% is going to your tithing, saving, or investing if you're giving to any charity or whatever. So I'm using this example. I just Googled what's the average salary in Michigan. I'm in Metro Detroit, and the average salary is $50,000 gross. So the net income after paying federal and state taxes is usually about $36,000. So when looking at $36,000, this 50-30-20 rule is like the baseline of how your money should be allocated according to like standards on making sure you hit retirement and different goals like that. So the reason why I say it's not going to be realistic depending on where you live, because rent is insane right now. Rent is expensive, so is groceries, right? So basically $18,000 for the year. So I mean, if you had lucky enough to have $1,000 rent somewhere, 12,000 is gone already to your rent. We know it's usually like $1,500, right? I'm going off of Michigan standards. You know, you could be watching from wherever, right? So with that being said, it's like, okay, now the rest of that $18,000 is going to my utilities, my internet, and my phone. And then that's that. I know this is for the whole year, but when working with someone, I would break this down to monthly type of thing. So instead of them coming up where their money's going, I'm giving them a baseline of like, hey, this is how you should allocate your money. Because they're like, I don't even want to look at how much I'm spending, right? I said that baseline is important. They're like, wait, it's just too many transactions to set a baseline. Okay, so let's establish this baseline for you and move off of that. So you have one, you have your vacations, your dining out and all that. I'm using this example as a yearly and then assigning it monthly and then weekly, but you can just take your net pay and look at it from that way and allocate it for the month, right? When you set the tone for the month. I'm just using this example to give you solid numbers from an annual salary, and then you can break this down monthly. So that's a good question. So if it's $18,000 for the year, you divide that by 12. You take all these chunks and divide it by 12. If you know you make about $50,000 a year, is a great baseline to establish. And the reason why I'm saying it may not be feasible is because you're like the $18,000 is gone already with rent. So that means your wants goes down to be able to hit the essentials. And then it could be that your savings or investing goes down in different buckets. But the 50-30-20 rule is a rule of thumb to know if you're overspending in certain areas, right? So it could be that, okay, well, your rent is extremely high. Or your mortgage is high? You can't say refinance in this market, but if the rates were low, would it be, oh, you have a lot of equity, you can refinance to get a lower rate and that will reduce your payment, right? So that's an example of that. Moving, I know it's like, girl, you crazy. Moving is expensive. Ain't nobody trying to move around like that. I get it. However, it's easier for a single person with no kids to move around. I did this with myself. Like, okay, I'm living in a nice corner unit high rise. It's costing me a lot more and I can get something better, right? For better meaning I decided to just buy a multi-family home because I'm like, I don't want to pay rent. So that mindset, like shout out to my friend Rochelle, who's been on this channel. She's a mortgage broker and she's a real estate investor that got me started with real estate investing. And I purchased the multi-family home. And the mindset was, all right, I'm looking at this 50-30-20 rule. Not exactly, but I wanted to go all in on investing. Like after I paid all my debt out, I wanted to max out my investing as much as I could, right? So what was the lowest amount I could live on was where my mindset went. And purchasing a multifamily was the way to go. It was a great market at the time. So it was feasible for me to do. That's it. The type of deal I got for this home doesn't really exist anymore. But it was like, okay, if I get a multi-family, I stay in one unit, rent the other one out, I don't have to pay rent. Right? So I'm investing in the property to bring up its value. And then, all of certain things is covered because I'm splitting stuff with a tenant. So I got creative when looking at how to max out certain things. And so when you're trying to hit a goal and you have these numbers written out, you start getting a little creative on how you get to your goal faster, right? That's why I started off with knowing your why, establishing that baseline. So then if you're like, okay, if I do 50, 30, 20, I want more money going to, I need that number to be higher in the ones. Like I need that budget to be higher. It's okay. How can you increase your income, right? So the whole thing with budgeting, people don't like it feeling restrictive because it's like, I can't do anything. Well, you can. You can spend less, which is like usually the easy answer, or you can increase your income. And increasing your income sounds, I mean, yeah, if anybody could do that, if everybody could do that, they would, right? So it's like, okay, do you get a second job? Do you have something you can do on the side, you know, if you're a teacher, because you tutor to earn extra money? So it's all these type of things to think about, like where I'm saying with coaching comes into play of like, okay, how do we get unstuck of being stuck in this box for numbers and you feel like, okay, I don't want to spend less. So let's talk about earning income. If you're like, I don't have time to earn income, well, we got to get creative on reducing um your expenses, right? So it's both or one or the other, right? And again, that's why I was saying that it can hurt when you first start doing it because it's like, oh, I feel so restricted. Going back to when I first was like learning how to use my Weight Watcher points, it was like, okay, so I'm just not gonna have a life. Then it's like, okay, no, if I work out more and more, I get more points. If I eat salads, if I eat more vegetables, I'll have more points to do the fun stuff I want to do. Right. So it's the same thing when it comes to your money. If you're like, this budget is too restrictive, okay. If you got more hands on with preparing your meals, how could that help you? Right. I'm just throwing out food because y'all know I love food. I always go to bring up food as an analogy on this channel. But whatever the case may be, so if you have any questions on like what's specific to you and your pain points, you can drop them and we can talk about it, you know, on the live. But I'm just throwing out ideas of what I see the most with people. Honestly, with couples, it's usually always one big spender who just buying stuff all the time. It is not always women. I've said this before. It can be men with tools and they have all these projects in their mind they're gonna do and they never get to doing it, or they have a side hustle that requires them to buy all these different gadgets or whatever, and then they don't have the income coming in to support all these income ideas that they had, right? So I see a little bit of both working with couples, and it's like, okay, well, how are you collectively going to reduce spending? And that's when it gets hard. It's also, I also noticed a trend. It's hard with mothers. Sorry to pick on y'all. When we pull back and look at the swipes from Walmart or Target that was supposed to be for groceries, but then it's like, why do you keep going over? Oh, because I saw this and I know they love it. I knew they would like you. And so now you went $150 over a week in groceries, and now you're taking away from a vacation that you could have had. Or, you know, something else. You know what I mean? Maybe not a vacation, or you wanted to go get a certification, you wanted to pay for it. So those little things here and there, this $20 and $30 in a week come to $150 a week. You know what I mean? $400, $500, $600. That's where the money's going, and I see it time and time again. It's like, this can't be true. It is true because I'm telling you and showing you, right? So the whole thing with budgeting, no matter what four methods you pick, is going to force you to be more intentional how you spend your money, and it's going to force you to say no to a lot of things, right? And like I said before, right now, I'm working on some things. I'm usually private. Like when I get super conservative with my money, people are like, all right, what's going on? When I got super conservative the first time, I was paying off debt. Became debt free. The second time, it was, I want to buy investment property. I want to buy another investment property. So I started saying no to a lot of things. So it's the same thing for me right now. Let me see if I covered everything I wanted to cover before hopping off of here with y'all today. Oh, the last thing I want to say is doing an audit before you go shopping. I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the live, but I want to reiterate this. Before, like every shopping trip should have a purpose, right? Even online, your scroll down Amazon should have a purpose. Your scroll down Walmart app or Target app should have a purpose, right? That's what I wanted to highlight with the no spend money. Like, what are you just aimlessly spending your money on because you're bored, right? So every shopping trip should have a purpose. So I always say do an audit like of your home. If you are in the Midwest or the East, it's the winter time. So we in our house anyway. We not out and about. Once summer comes, you start spending more money. I feel like from working with people and just my own self, because festivals are happening, there's more free events. Whenever that free event is going on, you're gonna spend money because you're gonna pay for parking. You're like, oh, you know, this lemonade, I'm gonna grab this lemonade. You're gonna start spending more money, right? But I say do an audit of your closet before buying clothes to see what you have in your closet, right? If you see something that catches your eye, it's like this little black dress, okay, but you have 20, what's the point of buying the 21st, right? And if you're gonna buy what you want, kudos to you, but don't let all this stuff accumulate, right? And I'm speaking from truth, because y'all know I told y'all I had two closets, a winter fall closet, and a spring summer closet, and like 8 drawers full of clothes. So I'm speaking from experience, right? And I'm not a person that just goes shopping all the time, but for me, I wasn't really getting rid of stuff. Oh, I could use this for another day, and then it's just cluttering, clutter, and clutter. So it's a different reaction for me. Is it in your kitchen? If you love to bake and cook, I know somebody said they was making muffins. All right, so people who tend to really like to bake and cook, they have all these ingredients, they have all this stuff that they may use for this particular recipe, but they may never get around to making it, and they don't make a list, so they're just buying the same thing over and over again. If it's crafting, you know what I mean. So audit what you love to do. If you know you love buying hair care products, you know it's shoes or clothes. It's like do an audit of this stuff and see why do you keep buying it or stop buying it in general, because you're like, all right, I really thought I needed some more work shoes or dress shoes, but when I went in my closet, I found 5 boxes that I forgot to that I bought, because that happens, right? So the next shopping trip you plan on doing, you can go if you want to go, if you're going with friends or family, but you don't need to buy anything because you forgot about the 5 pairs of shoes in the back of your closet, and that could be going to where your investing account, your brokerage account, right? So that's just food for thought to leave you with. Like, what story is your house telling about you and your spending, or what story is your bank statement, meaning your credit card or your debit card, telling about how you spend your money? Because when you sit down with me, I'm gonna find a story. I'm not going in your house and doing all of that, but when I look at what is coming up on your statements, I can tell what the priority is, and this is the reason why you're not hitting your why. So yeah, I was about to pick on moms because they tend to be the one that is buying stuff for the house, so they tend to buy this stuff that they know the person needed. They didn't know they needed it. They bought it because they were being thoughtful. That can be throwing off the budget. That's just something I thought of top of mind. But again, y'all, I'm about to get to enjoying the rest of my Sunday. Again, if you want to work with me one-on-one, you got that quick money question, go to Tasha.com and let's see how we can work together. And I will see y'all next Sunday at my regular time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, talking about your net worth. And if you like your net worth is your net worth, that's wrong. You definitely need to be here next Sunday. So I can really break down the net worth conversation, because that thing, y'all, it's not. Yeah, it's purpose. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Right. So you could be missing out on some dreams that you could be achieving because you got it stored in your closet. It's in your hair cabinet. It's in, different places. And a lot of people will say, oh, it must be nice to be able to quit your job and travel the world. I'm like, you got it too. It's in your driveway. Like, you love new cars. Like, I'm cool with driving a car that's a few years old, but you want to buy new cars every year. And not least, you want to buy new cars, I ain't gonna say every year, but every few years. So it's in your driveway, and that's cool. But if you saying you really want to travel the world, like this is that, you know what I'm saying, that's a sacrifice that comes into play, right? So that's what I'm saying. What's really holding you back from hitting that goal, or just to have enough money to do whatever you want to do? It may not be travel. I know everyone doesn't like to travel, but maybe you have a hobby you want to explore a little bit more, and you don't have the time. You're like, oh, it'd be great if I just took some time to do it, but I can't. I mean, where is it? Is it your driveway? You know, kitchen? Like, what is it? Um, thank you for taking notes, and you know, you can hit that replay to really look at it again. And I'm out, y'all. I'll see y'all next Sunday, and bye.